In an era which has concentrated exclusively upon extension of living space and increase of rational knowledge at all costs, it is a supreme challenge to ask man to become conscious of his uniqueness and his limitation. Uniqueness and limitation are synonymous. Without them, no perception of the unlimited is possible, and consequently, no coming to consciousness either. Merely a delusionary identity, with it which takes the form of intoxication with large numbers and an avidity for political power. Our age has shifted all emphasis to the here and now, and thus brought about a demonization of man and his world. The phenomena of dictators and all the misery they have wrought springs from the fact that man has been robbed of his transcendence by the short-sightedness of the super-intellectuals. But man's task is the exact opposite: to become conscious of the contents that press upwards from the unconsciousness. Neither should he persist in his unconsciousness, nor remain identical with the unconscious elements of his being, thus evading his destiny, which is to create more and more consciousness. As far as we can discern, the sole purpose of human existence is to kindle light in the darkness of mere being. It may even be assumed that just as the unconscious affects us, so the increase in our consciousness affects the unconscious. That was a passage from Memories, Dreams and Reflections by Carl Jung. And it's a really good book if you've got a few hours to kill to want to read it. It's really good. Today's video is all about Watchmen number 9. I'm sure you've all seen on YouTube with the comic community that we have here, a handful of us have got together and each one of us is taking in turn to review an issue of Watchmen. My one is issue 9, The Darkness of Mere Being. On the very cover, you see spinning in space a perfume bottle. Now, this perfume was created by Asmodeus, and you have to excuse me if I pronounce his name wrong. And it is just, as you can see, in movement in space, aimlessly spinning around. When we turn the cover, we still see the perfume bottle spinning in space, and then we see Nite-Owl entering a room just as Dr. Manhattan and Silk Spectre leave it. Instantaneously, mere milliseconds after they leave the room with Nite-Owl in it, they re-emerge on the surface of Mars. Now, as the story of the Watchmen progresses issue by issue, we see that Dr. Manhattan loses his humanity. And this is most prevalent at this point, where we see Silk Spectre on the surface of Mars collapse and fall down a mountainside, gasping for air, because Dr. Manhattan has completely forgotten that she needs oxygen to survive. It's only when she gets to the bottom of the hill that Dr. Manhattan realises what's happening, and he apologises and creates an aura around her with oxygen in it so she can breathe and live on the surface of the moon, or the surface of Mars, sorry. All the while, we see this perfume bottle spinning in space, aimlessly, it would seem. Also, in previous issues, you would have seen Dr. Manhattan create a glass citadel on the surface of Mars. This is where he takes Silk Spectre for them to have a chat. But this chat is to save mankind, to stop mankind being annihilated by nuclear destruction. The only thing is that Dr. Manhattan has all but lost his humanity, and he doesn't really care about mankind. He really cannot see any sense in saving mankind. The only thing Dr. Manhattan can see is the universe. Everything around him is the universe. He doesn't walk in the same spectrum as humans anymore, where we see things in seconds, minutes, hours, days. He sees things in decades, centuries, millennia. But he has taken Silk Spectre to this Martian citadel that he created, hopefully to persuade him and to get him to understand why he should help and save mankind from certain nuclear annihilation. In order to do this, he asks Silk Spectre to recount moments in her life that are poignant to her, key moments in her past that have helped shape her into the person that she is today. She recounts the time that she remembers seeing a snow globe when she was very, very young. She also recounts the time when she remembers seeing a very old friend of her mother's come into their home a little worse for wear. She also remembers the time when she first saw Dr. Manhattan, and also the first time that she spoke to the comedian. Now, as she is recounting these tales of her past, Dr. Manhattan raises the citadel off of the surface of Mars and propels it across the Martian landscape to show her all the wonders that there are on Mars, and to explain to her that isn't this much better, and isn't this a much grander place to be than the Earth. As they're travelling across the Martian landscape and Silk Spectre is talking to Dr. Manhattan, you still see this perfume bottle floating, spinning aimlessly in space. As they're talking, Silk Spectre also starts putting together in her own head a jigsaw puzzle of events in her life. Not only does she remember seeing the snow globe when she was very, very young, she also remembers an argument that was between her mother and her father. Not only does she remember seeing an old friend of her mother's turning up at their house worse for wear, she also remembers a moment where her mother is angry at another friend for mentioning a book that was written about the past and about the original Minutemen. She also remembers not only the first time she saw Dr. Manhattan and the comedian and spoke to the comedian, but also the time that her mother told her that the comedian raped her. All these moments to Silk Spectre are poignant, and all these moments are very, very strong in her mind. But still, Dr. Manhattan just keeps on talking about the Martian landscape, the vastness of the universe and space as a whole. And still, they travel across the Martian landscape, and still Silk Spectre tries to persuade Dr. Manhattan to help save mankind. She then turns to a point in her life where she is able to confront the comedian, and she tells him that she knows what he did to her mother. The comedian's answer is he only did it once. Somehow in the comedian's mind, this is reason enough to not worry about it. And all the while you see this perfume bottle spinning aimlessly in space. Slowly the liquid inside the perfume bottle is lost to the vastness of space and is slowly emptied as it spins. Finally, just as the Silk Spectre gives up hope in being able to persuade Dr. Manhattan to save and to help and save mankind, she puts the final pieces of her own jigsaw puzzle together, where she realizes that the person who she feels was her father is not her father at all. Her real father is the comedian. At this point, in a moment of betrayal, loss, and anger, she takes the perfume bottle that was with her all the time, and she throws it at the wall, at one of the walls of the glass citadel. This is where we find out where we have seen the perfume bottle aimlessly spinning in space. It wasn't spinning in space, it was being thrown by the Silk Spectre, propelled in a moment of absolute anger and high emotion at the citadel, glass citadel's walls, which when it hits the wall, it completely destroys the citadel, and the citadel crumbles around them, and they're both left inside a protective bubble that's created by Dr. Manhattan on the floor of the now completely destroyed citadel. Both stood there in silence. It is at this moment that Dr. Manhattan decides that he is going to help mankind, and he will go back to the Earth to save humanity from nuclear destruction if he can. Now, to me, this whole issue of Watchmen is all about significance. Mainly the significance of life, of everything, to everyone. If you read the comic, you'll notice, as always, you have the 9 usual frames in each page. But in this particular issue, the 9 frames, the small frames of each page, are only used when Silk Spectre is recounting her past. The only times a larger framework is used on a page is when Dr. Manhattan is trying to explain to Silk Spectre about the insignificance of mankind and humanity and the vastness of the universe. The perfume bottle spinning aimlessly around, to me, would show the Earth aimlessly spinning around the sun in a solar system that is much vaster than most people can comprehend. And even then, that solar system is but a speck compared to the whole universe that's around it. The whole issue makes you question the significance of everything, of day-to-day living, of the small things that trouble you or the person next to you in their lives. And as you read the comic, you realise that in the grand scheme of things, whatever's troubling you, or whatever's troubling the person next to you, or the person in the next country, or the next continent, is nothing compared to everything in the whole universe. The universe doesn't care about us. The universe carries on. If mankind was wiped out tomorrow, the universe wouldn't notice. It wouldn't even blink. The only time that Dr. Manhattan takes any notice of what the Silk Spectre is saying is in the instant where she shows the moment of heightened emotion, where she feels betrayal, loss, and absolute anger about everything that's happened in her life. Betrayal from her mother for allowing the person to rape her to be the father of her child. Loss not only of the person that she thought was her father, but also loss of the person who is her father, and absolute anger of everybody around her that knew what was going on but didn't tell her. It's at this moment that Dr. Manhattan realizes that regardless of what happens in the universe, regardless that the universe doesn't take notice of what mankind is doing, the insignificance of something that somebody feels to the universe is still significant to them. And this is why Dr. Manhattan decides to help mankind, because at this moment he realizes that mankind is significant, if only to themselves. But you also see in the comic that even though Dr. Manhattan realizes that he needs to help mankind, on the last 3 pages of the issue, you still see that eventually whatever happens on the Earth is still insignificant to the universe. As the pictures pan away and it goes from 3 small sized frames to a bigger frame that incorporates 3 frames, to another frame that incorporates 3 frames, you're slowly being taken away from the surface of Mars, where Dr. Manhattan and Silk Spectre slowly turn into small specks on the surface of Mars. You see where they are on the surface of Mars. You see that they're near a crater. As the picture pans away from them, you notice that on the surface of Mars, the crater is next to another crater, and the face of a smiley face has been etched into the landscape. But even then, on the planet, this smiley face is an insignificant part of it. As the picture pans even further out and further out, you eventually see the whole of Mars with one of its satellites, Phobos, turning around it, and in the distance you see the sun. And eventually you pan back even more, Mars and Phobos get smaller, the sun becomes more prevalent, and then it pans out even more, and the sun becomes smaller and smaller until it's lost in a myriad of blinking lights in an inky black space that is the universe. After reading this issue, personally, I'm left with one question. What is life? Is life something that is in the grand scheme of things, insignificant? Is everything we do, everything we say, the people we love, the people we care about, is everything in our day-to-day lives insignificant? Or is life like a comic book? Whilst you have it in your hands, you enjoy it. You take care of it, you treasure it, you share it with other people. Is life like a comic book? Something that really shouldn't be picked apart. Something that really should be taken that seriously. But taken just seriously enough so that we all know that there's some meaning in it. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching everybody else's videos before this, and I hope that you stay watching these and will watch everybody else's video after this one. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you for watching, and take care, and remember, have fun. Ta-ta for now.